hello, and welcome to another episode of Activating Greatness, the show where we dig into what it really takes to lead with purpose, inspire performance, and create lasting impact. As always, I'm your host, Alec McChesney, and every episode we sit down with leaders, thinkers, and change makers who are unlocking potential in themselves, their teams, and their organizations. Here, we talk about the real stuff, leadership that drives culture, strategy that creates momentum, and the mindset that turns good intentions into game-changing results. Because greatness, it isn't a title, it's a choice. It's something you activate every single day. So thank you. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for being part of a community of leaders who refuse to settle for good enough. Now, let's dive into today's incredible guest, who is Matt Ulliman, co-founder of Ulliman Schutte, a nationally recognized leader in the construction and renovation of complex water and wastewater infrastructure projects. Matt has spent his career leading large multi-stakeholder projects where alignment, communication, and accountability determine success. And Matt is particularly passionate about partnering sessions, structured alignment mechanisms that bring owners, designers, contractors, and advisors together early in the process to clarify goals, define expectations, and establish behavioral standards before pressure hits. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to set the episode here in a minute. And for those listening, they already know that I'm ready to dive in. But before we do that, would love to hear from you and maybe give a little bit more context, that introduction for those who aren't familiar with you or the organization.
Well, thanks, Alec, and thanks for visiting with me today. And, as you said, I am very passionate about partnering and relationships and building teams and having successful outcomes. And, it's a little bit of my background. I am from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio and civil environmental engineer. But I've also been fortunate enough to work in about 12 different states in the U.S. on water quality projects. So, with that, I'm very excited to dive into this and talk to you more about some of my experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to go into this topic because on the construction side specifically within what Velocity does, but even starting to blend into some of the life sciences and CDMO work that we do, we've heard this teaming agreement and partnering sessions, being able to start on the right page from the very beginning of a large project. And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about between Velocity and Ulliman before is that partnering sessions and partnering relationships in general is not a nice to have. It is something that it's a requirement. It's something that you need to be really intentional about. And so I kind of just want to start. Maybe this is a softball, maybe it's a hardball. I'm not sure right out of the gate, but I just want to start with why alignment matters more than most leaders realize. I think most leaders would say alignment and clarity. Yep, we should do it. That's really important. We're on the same page. But there's this core belief that projects don't fail in execution first. They actually fail in alignment out of the gate. So what's happening in those early projects that leaders are overlooking, and why do we need to put more emphasis in general on alignment more than we are right now?
Well, that's a great question. So, the first thing I try to remember as a leader is it's people that build projects, right? It's men and women that design and build these projects. So, we all come with past educational experiences, past professional experiences, and we all have different personalities and different skill sets and different strengths and weaknesses. So we bring all that to the table and to the project for good or bad. So as a project leader, we need to realize that it's important to bring this team of men and women together to achieve this common defined goal. And I believe partnering is a real effective way to do that through an effective partnering process led by outstanding facilitators.
I'm curious, Matt. You mentioned something right out of the gate, and I'm going to take us on a detour. I'm always allowed one or two bad podcast questions, and so this might be one of them right out of the gate, which is it's the people who develop these projects, right? And I think about the matter of relationships and how important it is to be on the same page, not only at the beginning, but when you think about all of the friction that comes up in a project, whether that's month 3, month 12, month 24, as maybe we're missing a deadline or we're over budget or there has to be a correction that is put into place. And so I'm curious, how do you see this partnering from the beginning, allowing us to remove some of that friction? Because this isn't just a typical kickoff meeting. This is something different. There's something tangible about this that creates that common language and shared infrastructure for those different individuals, the different personalities, different communication styles to be able to work together.
Oh, absolutely. So if you think about it, before you turn the first shovel, what you want to do is build trusting relationships. And you want to establish effective forms of communication and processes to communicate well as a team, especially in times of conflict, because these large complex projects are going to have some conflict. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have problems. And it's how are we going to deal with that? So the best thing I believe we can do is get together and talk about what processes are we going to put in place to deal with those challenges throughout the course of the job. And then where do we go? So I think two of the best things we do in the kickoff partnering sessions is to have a communication matrix, talk about how we're going to communicate on the project, whether that's through the typical submittals and RFIs and the paperwork, but also talk about, hey, when a challenge arises, what do we do about it? And so, in addition to a communication matrix, establish a conflict resolution matrix and encourage and empower people to solve those problems. And we always try to start at the lowest possible level, right? And that is just so critical to the success of a project. And it's equally as important as establishing the common goals. So you get a baseline of common goals and objectives. You combine that with good communication protocols, good conflict resolution protocols, and you're really off to a good start.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for success, right? I think that's
absolutely
the interesting thing when I've talked with Joe Whitty on our side about these partnering sessions is this is not just us all getting together and saying, okay, you're responsible for this, we're responsible for this, and so on down the line. It's not a task implementation or a task readout. It really is. I love the two. You mentioned the communication matrix and then that conflict resolution matrix. Who's allowed to solve these problems when they do come up inevitably 6-7 months down the line? What does that autonomy look like? Who needs to be involved? And is it something that needs to be rushed to the top, or is it something that, hey, you have the right people in the room, let's solve it and move on? And so you're really able to create those touch points and eliminate friction once, and then be able to sustain that throughout the course of the project rather than that friction occurring time and time again, with different teams internally and externally as well.
Absolutely, Alec. And if you think about it, it's timely, efficient decision making that's so critical on these big jobs. We have projects in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And so all stakeholders are spending north of $1 million a month collectively. So what does slow decision making cost in terms of dollars? Well, a lot. The other thing it costs a lot is in aggravation. We might touch on this later, but I say I'm passionate about partnering because I've learned over the years of doing this that our teams are happier, our employees are happier, they're having a better project experience. Hey, going to work is tough enough. You don't want to make it tougher by not enjoying what you do every day. So you set the team up for not only project success, you set them up for personal success and satisfaction. So it's really an amazing thing to see when it goes well. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm so glad that you went that direction of the teams being happier, and the relationships are what drive a lot of times the happiness for somebody at work and at home at the individual level. And if we can foster those relationships, if we can make it enjoyable, it's something that everybody is going to find more success with. But I always go back when I started at Velocity, I was asking a bunch of different individuals just kind of the work that we do and why we do it and what the impact that we see. And one of our team members, Amanda Nichols, said, you spend 2/3, if not more, of your life at work. Why don't we make it a little bit better? It doesn't have to be this hard, right? And if we can make our people and the people we work with a little bit happier is going to mean better results as well, because you're more willing to have those tough conversations. You're more willing to be engaged in these types of sessions. So I really appreciate you going down that pathway, Matt. And this isn't just about bottom line. It's also about the people that you work for and that you work with.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, let's take a little bit of a detour here. I want to look at this balance of strategy and tactical, right? And we talk about the strategic impact that you can have and then the tactical impact on the day-to-day for a project. And so I'm curious, Matt, from your perspective, how do these partnering sessions, how are they able to both influence that strategic direction of a project, because we're doing this maybe at the beginning, or maybe we had a little bit of a hiccup and we're bringing a partnering session in? How does it impact that strategic direction, and also, to your point earlier, that day-to-day tactical execution, being able to make some of those decisions in real time as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. But what's awesome is, of course, in the partnering session and in that environment, you're going to handle the strategic when you discuss the big picture, and how to accomplish the big picture is really a team exercise. And so you set the strategic direction, the strategic goals, the common goals of the project, and you can course correct a little bit of that strategic planning in your quarterly follow-up sessions. Now, the day-to-day execution obviously is derived from understanding that big picture. The men and women that get together and design these projects and build these projects all day, every day at the job site level, they really need some direction of the big picture, so they keep it in mind. I mean, I could give you a couple examples of that, but if they hit a challenge and they understand that the goal is to produce clean water by a certain date, they also have in mind that, hey, we can't kick the can down the road. We've got to hit this head on, because our day-to-day execution, is very important to meeting that strategic goal. So they work hand in glove, and these partnering sessions allow you to really set the big picture, frame it up, and also talk about the day-to-day. And you have opportunities through follow-up sessions, which we're big believers in, at least quarterly follow-up partnering sessions, for a lot of reasons. It allows you to course correct. It allows you to be dynamic, because the project changes over time. So you need to be dynamic. Day one, you're just talking about maybe moving dirt and forming and pouring concrete. Toward the end of the project, right, you're talking about how to get the project commissioned, how to do startup, how to do training. So there's different stakeholders involved throughout the life of the project. You want to pull them into the project. And it's just overall an awesome opportunity, Alec, as you hit on, to set the strategic direction, be dynamic with it on a quarterly or a periodic basis, and obviously piggyback into the day-to-day execution team.
Oh, it's so good. Not only on the strategic versus tactical part there, Matt, but also talking about doing them consistently. That this is not a set it and forget it approach. This is something that you need to consistently do, because you're bringing in new stakeholders, new team members might join, and all of a sudden, if you're not having this, that alignment can fracture. And so I love that you went down that direction. And I'm going to play devil's advocate. I asked one bad podcast question earlier, and now I'm going to ask a second one. And I'm taking us down the pathway of, I'm a construction leader. I'm listening to this episode because Matt is such a fantastic guest, and I can't wait to hear all of his thoughts. And I am thinking, man, every time I've done one of these kickoff sessions, it's just been poor. We haven't gotten alignment. I've really struggled with it. I feel like it's a waste of time. The GE's not bought in, or the owner made us do it, or the subcontractors weren't even paying attention until later on. Like, all of the negative things that we hear about why these partnering sessions aren't needed. And then someone like yourself, who is clearly so passionate about it, I'm just curious, what's kind of your rebuttal? Is that, hey, you've had the wrong partner. You've been trying to do them internally, and you might need to bring in an outside source. Is it the infrastructure of, the actual process for those meetings? What would kind of your rebuttal be if someone came to you and said, I've tried them, they haven't worked, and, until somebody gives me a different reason, I'm going to have that opinion that they wouldn't be helpful for us going forward?
Yeah, and I have heard exactly what you're saying, Alex, so I can relate to this, well, firsthand. And, my rebuttal or my communication on that is, you got to put some effort in up front. You got to first define what you expect from a partnering session, select a outstanding facilitator that is experienced, have some conversations, the whole leadership team, have some conversations with that facilitator, define what you're looking for, talk about sessions that you've had in the past and projects you've had in the past that were highly successful, and how partnering played a role in that and what you got out of that partnering. And I'll tell you something we've implemented recently, and Joe has helped us with this, and Velocity has helped us with this, is we do some kickoffs that include behavioral style training through the birds, through that disc model, because you can work to enhance your team dynamics. We've talked about communication, how important that is, our workplace relationships. And what we've learned is understanding behavioral styles of the people that you're going to work with for the next 2, 3, or 4 years is really important. The other thing we found out, Alec, is that not surprising, there are a lot of owls in the construction and engineering business, right?
Yep.
And so we like to see a few more parrot, doves, and eagles, so that we can make the world go round. But the way to make partnering effective is put some time into it up front, and select a good facilitator. And I would say more than 50% of the time now, we're bringing in the individual behavioral style topic into some of the early kickoff sessions, and it's been very effective.
Oh, I love it. And I've got my my birds right here, my eagle and my parrot. And so if this whole Velocity and advisory group and the podcast doesn't work out, I'll give you a call and I can bring some parrot energy to the field. But I think I'm so glad that you said that, Matt, because that communication and knowing how to communicate effectively when there are times of friction is so important, right? And a lot of times what we hear, especially on the construction side, is we're so reactive to those problems because maybe we didn't know how to have that tough conversation, or the communication wasn't right, the alignment wasn't right. And I think that DISC platform and understanding, hey, how do I communicate with Matt versus with Jennifer versus with John, and so on down the line, it gives us that, again, that common framework, that shared language to be able to have those tough conversations, to be able to come clean and say, hey, we're behind over here, we need some help, or hey, we're in a little bit of a pinch here, what do we do, rather than waiting and letting it fester, and then it becomes a real problem 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the line. And I think, to your point, these are people you're going to be working with, men and women, for 3, 4, 5 years. And you really have to be bought in across the board, whether they work with your organization or they're an external partner. You need to have that same type of relationship with them as well.
Yes, I agree.
I have a question for you. What do you believe about the statement? I hear this statement all the time. The best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago, and the second best time is right now. I think this kind of applies a little bit to partnering sessions, because a lot of times when velocity is brought in is 2 years too late, and they didn't do a partnering session. Things got off the rails, but now they're bringing velocity in to try to get things back on track. And so, similar to the question about, hey, I might not be a believer in it. What about the question of, hey, we thought we were aligned, we did the normal thing, and now 2 years later, we're realizing we're 8 months behind, and maybe we're 40 or 50 or more $1 million over budget. Can we bring in a partnering session now? Do you still see as much value of it being that like stopgap to try to do auto correction in real time on a project as well?
Well, I'll say it this way. It might be more important to do it for the troubled project than even the one starting from the beginning. I've personally witnessed a project that had a rocky road, and we did not partner on it. The client was not that much in favor of it because the prior project they performed, they partnered, it didn't go real well. So they were a little negative on it, a little hesitant on it. Can't say as I blame them. And we got into the journey, and things were not going as smooth as possible. And we said, let's give this a try. And I'm telling you, things really improved. Things really smoothed out. The speed of trust is a big deal. Having a trusting relationship is a big deal. Stephen Covey wrote that book, I think, The Speed of Trust, and I believe in it. But I don't think it's ever too late. And I think just setting up the right format with the right people and have leadership believe in it is critical to success. So I just think that moving forward with it at the beginning of the job is really the best time to do it. But if you implement it later in the project, I think it'll also be beneficial.
Yeah. I love it. It's a great perspective on even hearing you say it might be more important to do it then. It's a great reminder that it's not too late to call in some friends. And I think the big thing that I've taken away from this, Matt, before we get into some rapid fire questions to wrap up here, is you have to be intentional with this, and you have to have the leadership team bought in. And if it's something that you do to try to check a box, then you're probably going to get check a box results. But if you set the intention and you say, hey, here's what we expect out of this session, here's what the goals are, and you do that upfront work leading into a partnering session, then, for lack of a better saying, the world is kind of your oyster. Then you're positioning yourself to have a lot of success, and for this to be a key and integral part of that work going forward.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, 35 years of partnering, I hate to date myself, but it's taught me that projects which embrace partnering principles achieve better results. The teams perform better, they're more effective at problem solving. And like I said earlier, our employees and all the others involved in the project experience have a better time. They enjoy it better, So,
I love it. Well, Matt, let's go to I'm going to go 4 rapid fire questions for you.
okay.
These are 4 leadership questions. We ask every single leader that we interview on the podcast these 4 questions.
Okay.
At the end of the year, you're going to end up in a book, because we're going to publish these together, and I can't wait for that. But let's dive in. Question number 1.
Okay.
What is one leadership habit that you rely on every day, no matter what? What's one thing you do every day, no matter what?
I think I try to realize that you have to lead by example. as a leader, you've got to realize what you say and what you do is important to everyone in the organization every day. Uh,
Mm,
People cling on to your actions, cling on to your words, and what is important to you becomes important to them. And so you set the culture of the organization every day by the little things that you do. And so I just try to lead by example.
mm. That's going to be that might be a snippet that I pull out for LinkedIn, Matt. That's a fantastic answer, but you still have three more to go. Question number
Okay,
two
thank you.
is, what is the most underrated skill that a leader needs in order to succeed?
I would say that the ability to communicate effectively is an extremely valuable skill set in today's world, in particular. A lot of folks want to text, a lot of folks want to email, and but you need to break through some of those barriers and make sure that you are creating an organization that communicates effectively. And you
Mm,
realize that you inspire people to succeed and establish trusting relationships. Uh, Act with integrity and professionalism by how you communicate. Uh, you need to be visible and you need to be effective and proactive in your communication skills with your fellow employees.
mm. I could not agree more, and I'm a big believer in the template of radical candor from a communication standpoint, and being able to communicate effectively and that clear as kind thought process. So that's great. Question number three: what is one thing? It's on the opposite end of the spectrum here. What's one thing that leaders and great leaders should stop doing?
I would say that leaders should stop being afraid to have difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes in today's society, I believe we're afraid to have difficult conversations, and really, it's the only way to hold people accountable and to set expectations. And
Mm,
if we fall into that bad habit of avoiding difficult conversations, I believe your employees are confused. If
yeah.
you set realistic goals with your teams, with your employees, and if they fall short, it's important in the right way to discuss why
Mm,
and try to course correct or learn from the shortcomings. And what I've also figured out is people expect to have these types of conversations, especially high performers. They need these types of conversations,
mm.
and especially if they're going to be all they can be in the long run. So we need to stop being afraid to just be candid and sit down
Mm.
and have these type of conversations.
Yeah. I always go back to when I was playing youth sports all the way through high school and college at a couple different schools. You think back to the coach that stops yelling at you has kind of given up, right? And whether that was right or wrong, it was always the headspace that you're taught as an athlete, is getting that feedback and having the critical lens of, hey, we could have been better here, or we could have been better there. While tough in the moment, it made you a better athlete, and it also let you know that you had that coaching relationship with your coach. And I think in a very similar vein, we have to be willing to have those conversations. Otherwise, your top performers might be caught off guard, or they're going to feel stagnant. And then certainly on the other side, the individuals who maybe are struggling are going to be caught off guard when 3 6 months later you start to have negative conversations or a negative review with them. So I think it's a very important answer there, Matt. I appreciate it. But
Thank you.
I've got one more for you before we wrap
Okay.
up,
All
and
right.
that is, what's the best leadership advice that you've ever received?
Well, I would say this that somebody told me once, when all else fails, just take in all the information you've got, rely on your experience, and trust your gut. And,
Mm,
I thought that was very good advice because you can't get analysis paralysis. You need to move on and take the organization or the decision to the next step. So when all else
mm.
fails, trust your gut.
That's spoken like a true eagle right there. Is get me 70% of the information, and then I'm ready to make a decision and run.
That is my primary trait. So you pegged me, Alec. So
I I
well
love
done.
it.
Well done.
That is awesome. Well, I know this is exactly what I was hoping for, Matt. This has been so fantastic, and I think we have such a great construction audience here with the Activating Greatness podcast that are going to get a lot out of this. But I also think, as I mentioned in the up front, there's so much of this that I think is applicable to all industries, whether you're running an internal project on the insurance side, or you're, launching a new program on the life sciences side, or any industry where there's big projects. I think this is such an important lesson that everybody needs to learn. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share your insights with us. And before I let you go, I've got to ask if there is anybody else, who is one leader in your world, whether that's inside your organization or outside your organization, who's another leader that we should interview? Someone who is doing meaningful work, somebody who is, a leader that others can learn from, that you think would be a great guest on this podcast. I want to put you on the spot a little bit and see where you go.
Okay. Well, I could think of a lot of people, Alec, but I'm going to mention a gentleman named Mike Rife. And Mike is actually a president of a small faith-based school in Springfield, Ohio called Catholic Central School. They have grades K through 12. And he is leading a team of educators in very creative ways. And they're making an incredible difference in shaping young children's lives. And let's face it, our kids are the future of our society.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot from Mike over the years about how to lead an organization, how to achieve results. And I've had the fortunate ability to apply some of those lessons learned to not what only I do as a CEO of Ulliman Schutte Construction, but also in my daily life. So I thought of him first. And so I think
I
he'd be
love it.
somebody really cool to talk to. And I'll say this, Alec, it's been an honor and a privilege to visit with you today and share this topic. You can tell I'm passionate about it, and it's been a really rewarding experience for me. So thank you.
Oh, no, I love it, Matt. And I couldn't be more thankful for your time. And, again, that's your passion is why we wanted to create the Activating Greatness podcast, because we need to tell these stories in a different way. And to everybody listening, if you want to reach out or you have follow-up questions about partnering sessions, don't hesitate to send them our way. And I could certainly connect you with the Ulliman team. I can connect you with Matt, and certainly with Joe and Velocity Advisory Group if you are interested in those partnering sessions. I'm assuming that you listen to this as the listener 38 minutes and you think, wow, what an episode. When you do that, make sure you leave a 5-star review, make sure you leave comments, and share it on LinkedIn, share it with your coworkers and colleagues. I'm still proving to everybody that this works. And I think this episode, which will be our 12th of the year, Matt, you're number 12, and we've got 65 lined up for the rest of the year thus far in 2026. And so it's only the beginning of this storytelling process. And I'm really thankful that you were kind enough to share your time, experience, and expertise with us as number 12 on the show.
Well, thank you very much. And I look forward to listening to those future podcasts too, Alec. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
All right. Take care and be well.